Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I'm extremely sorry that I cannot be here today to present this paper in person because I'm stuck in another meeting in Kolkata today where I'm part of the discussion on Bangladesh, India, Bhutan motor vehicle agreement. So my apology to all of you for not being able to stay here in person because of my prior commitment. But I thought that this is an opportunity for me to present to you a thesis on who should pay for urban wetlands. One of the fundamental reasons that I always thought about all this is because of my research that I have done on developing urban infrastructure and started realizing that there are benefits that we all enjoy and we never pay for it. So I think in this particular paper, my argument is to find a strategy of paying for the ecosystem services that nature gives us free. Let me go to my presentation. As we all know, that cities everywhere in the world, including Bangladesh and also in South Asia, are primarily built near rivers. And if you think carefully why on the bank of rivers, is very simple. But let me tell you that you all know it. Dhaka is on the bank of Buriganga, Chittagong is on the bank of Kornofuli, Rajshahi on the bank of Padda, Khulna is on the bank of Pashur, Sylhet on the bank of Surma, and so on. And one of the reasons why original cities were all built around the river is because of one of the services that river provided to human being, to us, quite free, without maintenance, without investment, and fully private, and that was the transportation service. It was due to the existence of the river transportation services for which cities started their first journey around a river. Over time, if you think carefully how to compensate if you do not have rivers, you start looking at the cost of construction of road, maintenance of roads, and you can easily see how much money river had saved for all of us by just being there. So yes, we have been enjoying the services of river, never thought about it probably. And the alternative is to develop road network which is quite costly. Now here is a map of Dhaka city over time from almost beginning of the early development to now. And you can see the Dhaka city, how it has expanded, starting from Buriganga. And every time it expanded to its north and west of Buriganga. So as we moved into the north and west of Buriganga, we basically expanded into another wetland. And we expanded our road networks into those wetlands. Wetlands that used to store rainwater started diminishing. The drainage system that the wetland services that wetland used to give was gone. Waterlogging started crippling urban life. Health and environmental hazard increased. Groundwater depletion as recharge are not possible. or has depleted the capacity of recharge. And city, by many scientists in Dhaka cities, they are thinking of probability of subsidence. So, some would argue that we have a catastrophe coming for us. This is a new challenge for Dhaka city, and it is important for us to think about it. Have a look at this map of Dhaka city of 78. If you go to the next map, you can see between these two maps how the wetland area has been changing over time, 10 years. Then you have 1998. Then you have 2009, almost nothing there. It's all filled up. So if you start looking at the growth of Dhaka city, you can easily see that as urban infrastructure started expanding, we started filling up land. If there was no infrastructure even coming, we started filling up to the level so that it's not flooded again. And this all happening because of the expansion of Dhaka city or population growth. It now appears that if we continue this by another 15 years or so, there will be no natural wetland around Dhaka city within this boundary. And I mean the boundary from the western side of Balu to the east of Turag, between east and west, from the north of Buriganga to the south of Tongital, from south and north. So if you look into this area, which is the Dhaka city map, there will be hardly any wetlands left. And if you look the consequences, this is what you will see. You see this particular map where you see the landscape. It's actually a concrete jungle. You all know it. This particular picture was taken over Uttara as we fly into the airport. You can see that. You can see how waterlogging or how the city will be flooded if you look at that. The transportation system, these are all difficult life in Dhaka city. It's all happened because of this. If you look at this particular map, you start looking at how developers are filling up their land. And all of this wetland, which used to be storing rainwater and keep Dhaka dry and also recharge our groundwater, is going to be filled up, whether we like it or not. Obviously, this will lead to drainage congestion. So, excuse me. So we can see that because of this drainage congestion done by one party, other party is going to pay for it, which is right here in this picture. You see how the city people will be living in a almost submerged area during rainy season. So the fundamental question is, how can we retain these wetlands? Obviously, there are quite a solution, a number of solutions possible. First solution that people have been asking for is that government to keep what they call protected area or retention ponds. Unfortunately, these areas, even those which are mentioned in the detailed area plan of Dhaka city, majority of the area is probably private land, which means if you want to buy this private land and keep it as retention area, it's going to be costly. So, question is, should we ask the owners of these areas that you cannot fill up your land because the people in Gulshan and Baridara need to remain dry, or rest of the Dhaka city people should have more drinking water supply or less subsidence. And because we all want it, the people in this newly developed area or the expanded area probably should not develop the area. That's a big choice. That's a difficult question. Take this example, Aftabnagar, where the East West University is. As we have filled up this area, this was probably a wetland area. Rainwater cannot stay here. It drains into the northern part or goes into the Rampura Khal. And it's obviously the huge water that drains out cause waterlogging in this northern area. Question is, if those areas are also developed, then probably we'll have more waterlogging in Aftamnagar. Should we then say to the people in those areas that don't develop, we will pay for it? That's one choice. And to me, that's a costly choice. On the other hand, if you start looking at it, private developers already bought most of the land. If you start looking from the Kuril area, from 300 feet road, all the way to Purvachal, most of the land are already bought by developers, which means they have already started filling up. The picture you have already seen. And they're not even waiting for government to build the eastern embankment. They thought that benefits are there. We just fill up the land high enough so that it is not flooded. And if that happens, I can sell the land and start constructions. So in a way, these developers are investing in the land because the land price will pay for it. So if you want to retain wetlands, can we buy this land from these developers? Probably not. It will be too costly. City will be bankrupt. So let me look into the choice two. The choice two is obviously government say, look, let's acquire the low-lying land, which is not developed yet, and protect them as wetland. Sounds quite interesting to me. It's a less costly solution because wetlands or low-lying lands, even though it's a private land, still not highly valuable. But imagine the people who are the owner. They are probably waiting for the right time, the land price to go up. And most of them are very poor people, living on fishing and agriculture, with very little human capital. So, yes, government can do it. To benefit whom? To benefit rest of us. So, this acquisition strategy often runs into conflict, and we have seen it in several cases in the recent past, that poor people start opposing acquisition of land because it disrupts their livelihood. So, as I have mentioned already, government probably is not going to be able to acquire land from developers because it's too costly. On the other hand, if government start acquiring land from the poor people, it's unjustifiable. So given this, what I thought that as an economist, what we should use the concept of payment for ecosystem services and see whether the beneficiaries will be able to pay. The economist argument is that people who benefit from the services of nature should begin to pay for retention or continuation of these services. In most cases, it is not happening. We never paid for the services Buriganga gave to us for transportation because there was no market for buying and selling of these services. So yes, the biggest problem is not that services were not there. The biggest problem was there was no mechanism to exchange those services for money. However, at the same time, recent research, and quite a lot of research, including some of mine, we have provided evidences that yes, if the land is flood-free, price is high, which means people are ready to pay for better land, free from flood. People are ready to pay for land that are on the lake side, for the natural beauty. People are paying for land which is scenic. People are also paying more for areas of land that has more amenities or city amenities like bus route, transportation, schools, shopping center, etc. So if you look into this, what did we do while developing land? We already know that obviously flood-free land is more valuable than flood-prone land. We already know that residential areas with university, hospital, park, shopping center are more valuable than residential areas without them. So government has already developed regulatory requirements for residential areas. Let me state two rules that already exist. In many of the residential areas, Raju could not allow development until it ensures 50% of the land remain open for public use. Builders are also supposed to keep floor area, maintains floor area ratio to build high rises because these benefit people. So in other words, when you are not developing 50% of the land for private use, that means the common use, which is a public land, providing a benefit to the private user, and private users pay higher in order to enjoy those benefits. So it's a regulatory requirement, but market start taking care of it. So in that scenario, if you now start looking into it, probably it is possible to argue that yes, as the new land in Dhaka city are being developed, there should be a strategy so that people who are going to enjoy the new area are going to pay for the ecosystem services, which will make Dhaka sustainable. So, as an economist, my argument is, let us create some new rules in addition to those rules that is only for common and public facilities. First of all, the new rules should prohibit closing of wetlands open outlets, which means you cannot close a river, you cannot close a khal or stream. Wetlands should remain interconnected. Similarly, while the developers developing landscaping for their residential plots, they should retain 20% of the land as wetland, because the new Dhaka area is expanding into the wetlands. And once they start doing it, the wetlands will be there in a different form, not the same wetland. They will remain interconnected. Instead of 50% of public use, we could compensate for it and say that 30% of the land should remain for open, common or public facilities and 10% for roads. So you end up developing housing and other facilities on 40% of the land. The land price will be higher, but they will pay for the wetlands. In other words, they will pay for the services that they will also continue to enjoy in future. In that particular solution, my understanding is that this will remain a win-win solution. People who will live there will pay for it. And it's a win-win solution without costing any money for the government. Thank you very much.